Coming up on today's show, we're going to be talking about 5 players that I think the New Orleans Saints should consider trading for ahead of the October 31st NFL trade deadline. But before we get to that, Saints fans, it's up to you to help out the New Orleans Saints offense dominate against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this week. So like it up, because every single like we get on today's video is 1 yard of offense for the Saints. So if that means we get 300 likes, that's 300 yards. If we get 1,000 likes, that's 1,000 yards. So like it up and let's get the ball moving. All right, and so for the trade targets we're discussing, I'm going to start off with an offensive lineman because I do believe that that's a unit in the New Orleans Saints depth chart that is very much so struggling. So Shaq Mason is a guy that did recently sign a 3-year, $36 million extension with Houston. However, he has been traded a multitude of times over the last couple of seasons. And look at the PFF grades for Mason. I think that he could do a great job of replacing Cesar Ruiz as he is out with that concussion. Andrus Peat is filling in for him. I'm not really a big fan of that. I think that Peat's not that great, but Mason puts up great numbers, 66.9 overall PFF grade, a 55.5 pass blocking grade, a run blocking grade of 69.1, and 1 sack allowed. And when you look at the overall offensive line PFF grades, it's not great. Like Ryan Ramczyk at just under a 70 is absolutely disgraceful. So on your screen, you can see Penning with less than 50 overall grade. He's ranked 58th out of 67 tackles. James Hurst, 57.5 and he's 42nd out of 76. Erik McCoy, 13th out of 35. He's at a 62.7. Cesar Ruiz just signed a big-time extension with the Saints, and he is playing awful. I am not happy with how he is playing. Ryan Ramczyk, like I said, he's not playing bad. He's not playing, but he's definitely not playing great, and he is supposed to be playing like a stellar athlete. And like I said, Andrus Peat, he did fill in for Cesar Ruiz in Week 3 against Green Bay when Cesar Ruiz left with the concussion issue. In the injury update that we got yesterday, in the injury report we saw, Ruiz still listed with the concussion. He did not participate in practice yesterday. But I just got to say this, plain and simple, the offensive line has to be better. I really do think that maybe adding a guy like Shaq Mason or another offensive tackle we're going to talk about here shortly, I think it might make some sense because it could add some talent, add some juice to the line. But at the end of the day, it kind of feels like you're stuck with this unit, so they just have to be better. There is no discussion about it. The Saints' offensive line needs to protect Derek Carr or Jameis Winston better. They need to open up the run lanes for players like Alvin Kamara now or Jamal Williams, who is now on IR, and Kendre Miller. Like, you have to play better if you want to find success because games are won and lost in the trenches. And coming up, I have another offensive lineman that I think the Saints could trade for, a tackle. So let's talk about that here shortly. And then a homecoming for another player that could be traded for. But before we get to that, I want to give a huge shout out to our sponsor of today's video, Prize Picks. And guys, Prize Picks is absolutely awesome. So Prize Picks is the largest independently owned daily fantasy sports platform in North America. And it's the easiest and most exciting way to play DFS. It's just you against the numbers. So go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Instead of battling versus thousands of other players, including pros and sharks, you just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projected stats, and place your entry. Prize Picks is the most fun I've had, winning up to 25 times my money this football season. And as for the projections I'm rolling with this week, I showed them to you a couple times this week already, but here they are again. If this is your first time watching, I'm taking the projection of more receiving yards for Michael Thomas. I think he's going to have a big-time game with Jameis Winston at quarterback. Desmond Ridder, I'm not a Falcons guy. I'm always going to take less for a Falcons player on Prize Picks. And Russell Wilson, I just think that Sean Payton doesn't like to get embarrassed. I think that Russell Wilson might actually play decently well. So I'm taking more for his passing yards as well. But guys, one more time, quick withdrawals and easy gameplay and an enormous selection of players and stat types are what make Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. So go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS for that first deposit match up to $100. Daily fantasy sports made easy. That link is available in the comment section and description of today's video. All right, so offensive line, I told you, we got an offensive tackle on here, and it's Garett Bolles, who I'm going to just go ahead and say it. I think maybe an interesting idea. So when you look at the PFF numbers for Bolles, 69.7 and 76.2 pass blocking grade. The run blocking grade isn't great, but he's only allowed 1 sack. But when you listen to this, Trevor Penning's grades, 49.4 overall, a 60.5 pass blocking, and a run block grade of 39.6. He's allowed 3 sacks, and Penning also allowed 11 total pressures. And the thought here with Garett Bolles is that you could allow Trevor Penning to have more time to develop, and you could protect your quarterback a little bit better. Like I've said a multitude of times, it is a very, very long season. We're only in week 4. So the panic button, I don't think needs to be absolutely slammed right now. And to be fair to Trevor Penning, I want to give the kid a lot of credit because you have to give him reps in games. You can't let him just develop in practice. You're not going to get better. If you want to get better, I hate to say, you're going to have to fall down, get some bumps and bruises, scrape up your hands, and make a few mistakes, and that's how you learn. And Penning has also shown improvement in every game thus far. So in week 1 against the Tennessee Titans, 54.0 overall PFF grade, a 58.1 run block, 44.5 pass blocking grade. And then in week 2 against the Panthers, you saw the pass block grade get better. Of course, the overall grade went down, but so did the run blocking grade. I think it was just a bad game for Penning, but the pass blocking definitely improved. And then in terms of his week 3 performance, he had the best performance he's had this season. A 72.4 pass blocking grade is pretty dang good when you think about how much pressure the Green Bay Packers defensive line was putting on Derek Carr. He was not a massive issue. Sure, he let up some pressures, let up some, really bad hits. That being said, Penning has developed and he has gotten better. So I want to hear from you. What say you, Saints fans? Should New Orleans trade for an offensive lineman? Just give me a simple yes or no down in the comment section. I'm curious as to what you guys have to say because I think that they might be all right. Maybe you go get a guard. I think it's going to be tough to trade for an offensive guard because a lot of teams out there, they ain't looking to shop away or trade away their guards. So you got to keep that in mind, but let me know, should the Saints trade for an offensive lineman? All right, so let's get to the defensive side of the ball, and I think Budda Baker actually might be an intriguing option because he is an absolutely electric player. The stats, they speak for themselves. I mean, the dude is an absolute firecracker on that side of the ball. 111 tackles last year, a tackle for a loss, 7 pass breakups, 2 interceptions. And one of my favorite things about Budda Baker is how versatile he is. The snap alignment that he had last season, 413 at free safety. But he also played down in the box 349 snaps. He played in the slot 148 snaps. And he lined up on the defensive line in the trenches 41 times last year. And I'm not saying this because I think that the safeties have been bad this year. I actually think that the safeties have played really well. The defense as a whole, that unit has been lights out this entire season. They have been stellar. But I think that Budda Baker would also add a lot of juice, a lot of swagger, and a lot of energy to an already very stout defense that, let's call it how it is kind of thin and kind of missing guys with injuries, with suspensions. Marcus May, he is out for a handful of games. You have Jordan Howden, who popped up on the injury report this past week, playing through a finger issue. So the only thing around it, though, here's the catch. Budda Baker is on IR and will not be able to return until week 7. I believe it's a hamstring issue, but he's just not going to be able to play until week 7. So that is something to think about. And I don't know if Budda Baker would make sense to trade for right now, but if we get a little bit closer to the deadline, maybe you start thinking about it. If Jordan Howden has to miss significant time, then I think that it would be a pretty smart idea to go at least give Budda Baker a call and say, hey, want to come play down in the boot? But guys, I also want to tell you guys about our watch party this weekend. We're going to be live 30 minutes, maybe even an hour ahead of kickoff on Sunday. So subscribe and join us for our watch party. This is going to be the thumbnail. So if you see this on YouTube, if you see it on Google, click on it. Join us for our Super Chat giveaways, audience interaction, live play-by-play, tailgate. We'll be throwing back some drinks, having a good old time, talking ball. And trust me, you do not want to miss out on the fun we're going to have. So subscribe, turn on your notifications, and join us on Sunday. All right, another player that I think the Saints should go and look out for is Danielle Hunter. And producer Seeps, who some of y'all are familiar with, he's our Vikings guy here at Chat Sports, and he said, I think that if Danielle Hunter, if the Vikings lose one more game, I think that the Hunter is going to be gone. Like, he straight up said, if Vikings lose this week, Hunter might be on the trade block. And I think Danielle Hunter is a player that adds a lot of juice to the defense, who could add a lot of juice on the defensive line at that edge rushing position. Very productive player, very talented guy, and I would love to see him in New Orleans. Patrick Queen is my last one. So here's the homecoming I wanted to talk about. I think Patrick Queen would be absolutely electric to have in New Orleans. He is a former LSU Tiger, grew up in the state of Louisiana, and here's the biggest thing around him. Patrick Queen is on the last year of his contract, so I think that the Ravens could potentially look to move on from him. They didn't pick up his fifth-year option. There was some weird stuff going on around him in the offseason. That being said, the Ravens may want to keep him. I don't know why you would ever want to move on from a player that puts up these kind of numbers. In 2022, 117 tackles, 9 tackles for a loss, 5 sacks, 2 interceptions, and he has shown a lot of progress and a lot of growth in the off-ball aspect of his game in playing back in coverage. And in terms of what he's done this season, 31 tackles, a sack, a tackle for a loss, 2 quarterback hits, and a pass breakup. So I think that bringing in a Patrick Queen type player would be absolutely electric for New Orleans. But guys, share your thoughts with me, whether it's in the comment section here on the YouTube video or it's on social media. Let me know a player that you want the Saints to go and trade for. DM me on Twitter or Instagram. You can see it down below. You can see it right here. It's at Girouard48. I made it the same to make it easy on you guys. But guys, I want to hear from you. Comment down below. Shoot me a DM. I can't wait to hear from you. And as always, Who Dat Nation, y'all stay golden. We'll see you next time.